This morning on this program. Alex, let's start off. You're a member of the LGBT Society in Ghana, right?
Yes, I am.
Good.
I am a human rights advocate and also an LGBT activist.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, I said I'm a human rights advocate and also an LGBT activist.
Okay, human rights advocate and LGBT activist. This conference we heard about, can you confirm it or deny it for us?
Okay, so personally, I don't know of any conference coming to Ghana, but then again, too, we've heard a lot on radio and on TV and also other media platforms about the conference in Ghana, which has raised so many opinions and diverse views and all of that.
Yeah. But
I am going to go with the opinions that has been shared on various social media pages and also the media in general. Mm-hmm. So there is the notion that LGBT people are bringing conference to Ghana and all of that, and people are agitating and then also calling for the banning of conference. I think in this country, we all hold on to our constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, and the constitution, when you check the chapter, it guarantees every Ghanaian the rights and freedoms that it enjoys. And as LGBT, we also have equal rights to associate and to association. We have equal rights just as religious and other groups have their right to organize their meetings in peace. I think LGBT persons also have the right to also organize their conferences and meetings in peace without any prejudice or any bigotry or any maligning and hate comments from other people. Unfortunately, this is what we've done all the time here in this country, where religious groups mostly and politicians use LGBT as a scapegoat just so they can divert attention from the present issues that happen here in Ghana. I mean, no LGBT person has invited any Ghanaian for any conference whatsoever. And so I am wondering why a lot of people are worried. And even if LGBT persons are organizing conference, it is for themselves. They haven't met anyone. And so I think we are allowed to have conference for ourselves. When we invite you, then you can as well come and then say, okay, you have invited me to your conference and so I have problem with it. Okay. Or if you a conference to your various spaces, like let's say when we take religion, if we bring the conference to the mosque or to the church or any of the other places, then you will say that you have brought your conference to my space and so you have infringed on my right and so I can hold you on or I can take you on.
Okay, so Alex, what you're saying, Alex?
Yes.
What you're saying is that you're not aware of any conference.
I am not aware of any conference.
And the society, that's the LGBT society in Ghana, of which you're a member, you've not heard anybody talking about he or she being invited for a conference. Hello? Oops.
Cut it off.
Too bad. We've lost him there on the line. We'll try as much as possible to re-establish contact with him. We're talking to Alex, and Alex is a member of the LGBT society here in Ghana, and he said he's a human rights activist and also a gay rights activist. There are lots of issues we'd like to find out from him. So when we re-establish contact with him, we'll get him back on the line. The program is still focused here on Ghana television. We're talking about the issue of democracy, which he also brought up, which he talked about.
Which I really want to.
We talked about the rights to that they have.
Okay, first and foremost, I wanted to ask him a question. Is he really a homosexual? He sounded like no, he's not. He's part of the LGBT community. He's a human rights activist. And
a gay rights activist.
Yes, and a gay rights. And believe me, with all my trouble, I lived in Asia almost all my life, specifically in the Philippines. And I know some of these people, they are a bunch of people who have collected money from lobbyists and
who are not homosexuals.
Who are not homosexuals.
Okay. Let's move to Alex. I think we have Alex back on the line. Alex, good morning. Can you hear me? Hello, Alex.
Yes.
We lost you there. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Homosexual.
All right. Alex, have you seen the website that has been designed for this particular conference?
Yes, I have seen the website that has posted the conference here in Ghana as the Pan-African ILGA conference. Yes, I have seen it.
Okay, and you've seen the location and everything. You still don't think that there's something like this going to happen?
Yes, the location being Ghana, yes. And like I said earlier, LGBT persons have the right to associate. And so if LGBT persons are having conference, I think it is in its right place to have the conference. Because nobody has been invited whatsoever into the conference where you agitate. And even if you are interested in being part of the conference, you can as well register and come and also dialogue if that is. But in this country, like you said earlier, we are practicing democracy, and democracy allows every citizen to dialogue with each other. Okay. So anything that someone thinks that he doesn't understand whatsoever and so wants to dialogue, I think the person is in the right place to want to dialogue.
All right.
And I'm sure the LGBT community is also ready to dialogue with anybody regarding the LGBT situation and conference.
Right. Alex, you said you are a human rights activist and a gay rights activist.
Sorry, can you come again?
You said you're a human rights activist and a gay rights activist.
Yes, I am an LGBT activist. Yes.
What's the difference between the two?
So basically, human rights advocates, basically you advocate for human rights. And activism goes beyond just advocacy. Activism goes to also pushing the agenda of human rights, specifically looking at the LGBT community to be specific here.
And the problem is that agenda being pushed for the LGBT community. Why such an agenda?
Can you give me the question?
I said the problem is the agenda being pushed for the LGBT community. Why should such an agenda be pushed?
The line is a bit faint and there is noise around.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm saying that the problem has got to do with the agenda being pushed. Why that agenda?
I'm sorry, I still can't hear you. There is so much noise at the background, and your voice is like very faint.
Okay. Is it better now?
Okay, yeah, it's better now. Yeah.
Okay. I'm saying that the problem is the agenda being pushed. Why that agenda?
Why LGBT conference in Ghana?
No, you spoke earlier that the difference here has got to do with the gay rights has got to do with the agenda for LGBT society. Yes, and I'm asking why that agenda?
Yes, we can't ignore the fact that there are LGBT persons in Ghana. There are LGBT persons in every sphere of life. Whether we disagree or not, it is there. Every family, every society, every workplace. Imagine everywhere you can think of, in the village, in town, everywhere. There are LGBT persons there. And as LGBT persons, we have the right, like I said earlier, to associate and also network and also get to know ourselves and learn from each other. And so we as Ghanaian LGBT persons also have that right to actually learn from each other and also be.
Have you considered the culture that?
So if doing so, it allows us to hold a conference. I think it is in its right space.
Right. Have you considered the culture that we find ourselves in, and the culture that those in Ghana also find themselves in, the culture that totally frowns against something like this, the religious?
Yes, I mean, we do hear the word culture all the time, but I mean, my basic education tells me that culture is dynamic. Culture has never been static. If you look at the African culture predating pre-colonial era all the way up to now, there has been changes all throughout to 2020, and so we can't ignore the fact that there are so many factors influence.
We've lost Alex there on the line. We'll try if we can still re-establish contact with him, just so that we can engage him further. Here is one. I mean, from what he's saying.
Yeah. So that's how I was saying. I think you are still not asking my question for me. Is he a homosexual?
He said he's one.
He said, I didn't hear that.
He didn't directly say he, but I mean, based on what he was saying.
No, please, if you can emphasize that for me.
Okay.
Most of the time they are not, and even those who pretend they are, most of the time.
I played with Felix Okofi. If we can just get him back again, I'll be grateful.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And so first he was talking about constitution.
Yes.
Okay, and that I hope that he he's not thinking that only homosexuals who need rights. I hope he's also thinking about the pedophilias who need rights. I hope he's also thinking about the bestiality people. In fact, now they have even changed their name, call themselves zoophilias. I hope they also need rights. So why homosexuals only are the one they are pushing that agenda? It is because we know what is behind, and he's pretending as if he doesn't know. There are a bunch of lobbyists who have so much money who prefer that thing go on. Now we talk about people who are now even moving to become transables.
Yes.
That they also want to put their right.
The transabled, they are not disabled, but they think that they want to be disabled. So
somebody who gouged her, not her eyes out because he felt that. And I'm always to say that. Then I'm also actually a transmigrant. So now
we have Alex back. Okay. Alex, good morning once again.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry that we've not been able to have a stable life.
So I was saying that
when you Alex, before you continue,
our cultural settings, it has never been static. It's been dynamic throughout our life as Africans. But there is one thing that underlines or underscores every African setting. That is the belief in diversity and yet the acceptance of diversity. And so you realize that even Christianity and then formal education were all things that were not an African way of doing things, and yet we adapted those systems and it has become part of us. If you look at Islam, it is also not part of the African culture, yet we adapted it and it has become part of us. But the issue about LGBTs are not about culture, it's about individuals' lives we are talking about here. It is not about religion, it's about people's sexuality. Sexuality is innate. Sexuality is not something that somebody chooses. Sexuality is not something that somebody learns. It's part of the individual. And religion, and you use culture as the basis to select citizens out of others, then you are being unfair. Basically, anybody who goes with that analogy is being unfair. LGBT persons are just like every other person in society. Sexuality is not written on anybody's face. What two consenting adults do in the privacy of their rooms doesn't affect anyone. It doesn't infringe on any right. And so for what reason would people insult LGBT persons and throw all manner of hate comments and hate speeches about LGBT persons, and to an extent of politicizing LGBT issues? These are human rights issues that politicians, religious leaders, and all these people are politicizing, which is unfair and which isn't right.
All right. Alex, before we move on, one of our guests wants to find out from you whether you are an LGBT.
You are a homosexual.
So he's asking a personal question, like, if I'm a gay man.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think he's answered that. So, but Alex, moving on, you talk about diversity. Diversity is not just open. Diversity is usually practiced in a place where certain things are accepted and allowed. You can't move into a society where the front of
certain things, when I use diversity, I am talking about the fact that in this country, haven't we as a society, born in a society, known people to be sometimes effeminate, guys being effeminate, women being masculine, and all of that, and yet we have accepted
that's not diversity.
Diversity as being part
Alex, that's
of
not diversity.
The African way of life. With issues of sexual intercourse, that is issue that is mostly at the background of every conversation. No, most societies in Ghana don't discuss about sex. And so if sexual intercourse goes on, it is in the privacy of people's room. Nobody comes out to talk about it. I'm not sure you've read anywhere, I don't know, but you can prove me wrong, that people have come out about their sexuality in public to make people know. So definitely homosexual sexual intercourse might have gone on in the past, and yet there hasn't been any issue talked about it and whatsoever. So sometimes you will find it like maybe removed from the cultural discussion that goes on. But as humans and as people, sexuality is something that too goes on, and so you cannot remove that part from any human life, basically.
All right. So do you have any question for him? Maybe just...
No, I mean for him. I don't,
okay, all right. Alex, we'll have to leave it here because of time. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so that was Alex. He's a gay, he's a homosexual, and also a human rights advocate and a gay rights activist. I mean, from hearing from him, you realize that there's something like that actually going to happen.
You see, there's one of these dangerous notions of liberality,
yeah,
where in the Western context,
this morning on this